That's Nick.
And that's Joseph. And today we're here to talk about Locked, the fourth film directed by David Yarovesky, which the Avenue Entertainment is releasing March 21st, 2025.
Do you know this director's other films?
No. There's one of them that I always meant to watch, and I don't know why I haven't. And I was reminded of it as we were on our way to see this, and maybe I'll pop it in tonight. But his debut is The Hive, but he's probably best known for Brightburn from 2019, starring Elizabeth Banks, and Nightbooks was his last feature. I think it's worth mentioning here that Locked, his latest feature, this is the fourth version of this film.
Oh, really?
The original, it's based on a 2019 film from Argentina, an Argentinian-Spanish co-production called 4x4. There's a Brazilian and an Indian remake from 2022.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. Well, what is this film about? A thief breaking into a luxury SUV realizes that he has slipped into a sophisticated game of psychological horror. What is your pull quote?
Skarsgård and Hopkins elevate the familiar class commentary undergirding these B-movie tropes, inherently questioning the necessity of ethical equilibrium in futile attempts of vigilantism.
Mine. Locked really is a thrill ride, offering high tension with a touch of camp.
Yes, I think that the tagline should have been, get out of my revenge fantasy and into my trap car.
Trap car.
You know the song I'm referencing?
Yes.
Okay. The title is also very, it would make you think that it's similar to, since it's set almost entirely within a vehicle, the Tom Hardy film Lock from 2013, which is excellent.
Oh, sure. I did quite enjoy this film.
I
really
did
off
too.
the strength of the two main characters.
Yes.
Who are, Anthony Hopkins is so good. His voice acting, we do meet him towards the end of the film, but mostly it's him talking over the Bluetooth on a phone call in the car. But gosh, he's good.
Yes.
And I like Bill Skarsgård, and I definitely liked him better in this than The Crow.
Or Nosferatu. You can't even really see him. Although his wardrobe looks like when he was locked up in rehab in The Crow.
Sure.
Borrowing that pink hoodie.
Okay, the story's pretty simple. Bill Skarsgård plays this guy named Eddie, and Eddie's a bit of a reprobate. What do we know about him? He's separated from the mother of his child. He hasn't paid child support in 2 years, but he still feels very connected to his daughter, despite being a deadbeat. Examples are like, he doesn't pick her up on the days he's supposed to from school, but the daughter seems very forgiving, so that would indicate that she loves her dad.
And she's used to this behavior.
Yeah.
She's used to being disappointed.
But when we meet Bill Skarsgård's character, he's at a body shop trying to pick up his van, and he's short a couple $100, and the mechanic's like, get out of here until you have all of my money. But Bill Skarsgård is saying, I need this van. That's how I make my money. I also have to pick up my kid. But he decides that maybe he's going to get some money the best way he knows how, which is to steal. We see him steal a wallet. We see him trying to break into cars when he comes across this beautiful black SUV called a Dulles, or Dulles, which made me think of Tu Wong Fu, Officer Dullard.
Officer Dullard. It's a misprint.
But a Dulles is not a real make of a car. It's actually a pimped out 2020 Land Rover Defender. But it looks really cool. Anyway, Eddie breaks into this car and starts rummaging around to see what he can steal to sell. And there isn't much in this car. So he tries to get out and he can't. So for the next hour, it's Eddie stuck in this car being tormented by the owner of the car, William, played by Sir Anthony Hopkins. And initially, Anthony Hopkins says, my car has been stolen 6 times before. You're the 7th time. The police don't do shit, so I took it upon myself.
And I'm dying of prostate cancer, so there.
But we find out that really what's going on is that his beloved daughter was murdered a couple of years prior.
Right before his eyes, yes.
So it's clear that he's sort of snapped.
That's the plot of Death Wish, which they actually reference in the dialogue.
Yes. So things kind of take a turn because, of course, William is watching Eddie via cameras in the car. And Eddie has had enough. And he says, I'm done.
Like J-Lo.
He rips out the cameras, and so of course William has to take it to the next level. So William actually shows up to the car because he can remote pilot it. So he drives the car to like a remote area and walks up to it and tells Bill Skarsgård, "Here, take these hand ties, tie yourself to the bottom of the seat." Anthony Hopkins gets in and they go on a long drive. But we see Anthony Hopkins put a big bag in the back seat, which contains like a handsaw.
It's clear that Eddie might be dying tonight.
Right. But throughout the film, early on, we see that Bill Skarsgård, who had mentioned at the body shop that he's pretty good with cars, we see early on when he gets trapped in the car that he notices that there's like the fuse box maybe. And so he tries to access it, but of course he's being watched. So throughout the film, Bill Skarsgård is using his bare foot, which I'm doing that no one can see, to try to turn the switch.
Because Tony, he has to use his foot because William is able to electrocute him in the car.
Right. Whenever Bill does something Anthony doesn't like, he stuns him in the car. Mm-hmm. So as Anthony is driving him up a windy hill, Bill flips that switch and the car loses all power. It's an electric car. Mm-hmm. And they fly off a cliff. And they're both injured, but they don't die. The SUV bursts into flames, and Bill is able to get out, leaving Anthony to presumably die. And then the final scene is that Bill's able to make it to his daughter's school to pick her up at 2:15 precisely.
Yes.
I think that the strength of the film, like I said, rests on these actors' performances, but also the character development, because I felt very in the middle. I think they're both equally wrong.
Yeah, and that's what it's supposed to. Those are what we're supposed to be pondering about their actions. Is they both have a perspective that we can understand and even empathize with, but they are both morally incorrect.
And I think lesser performances could have easily tip the scale in one direction or the other. So I think really off the strength of these two performers, sure. in the end, I felt bad for both.
Yes, and William could have come across as caricature very easily.
Yeah, but oh gosh, Anthony's so good.
Well, yes, and again, this is 90% voice work performance, but he can sell it for sure.
So ultimately, Bill Skarsgård is stuck in that car from Friday to Wednesday. And he's only had 2 bottles of water. Well, not even, like a bottle and a half of water, 1 cookie, and then we see him drink his own urine at a point.
Which you can do once, which I've read in many narratives about shipwrecks, because after that it's, you're getting rid of your toxins, so you're ingesting them again. But you can safely drink your own urine once, which people that play water sports know it as well. But
we know people can survive 5 days without water.
Yes.
But of course, Bill is acting like he's fully dying. But I think the tension of being stuck in that car for that long is evident. Like, I felt stressed and claustrophobic watching him, because just thinking you couldn't get comfortable in there.
No.
Even if you wanted to.
Well,
because Bill Skarsgård is a tall guy, and you can't really stretch out, and the seats don't move, and that alone would have freaked me out. But we see him get injured early on because he's trying to break into a door panel. He cuts his arm pretty bad. Then Bill's carrying a gun and tries to break the window by shooting the gun. But the car is soundproof and bulletproof. So the bullet ricochets and hits Bill in the leg. And I thought the creepiest moment in the film is Bill sort of falls asleep, passes out, I guess, from losing blood or being tired. And when he wakes up, we see that he's been bandaged up. Mm-hmm. So that means Anthony got in that car. It's also important to know that Anthony says he's a doctor.
Yes.
And we presume a medical doctor.
Or a vet.
But yeah, he somehow bandages up Bill while he's asleep.
We hear him dealing with a patient who's delivering, who's giving birth. It's at some point. So yes, a doctor for humans. So at a point, they're having a debate, one of a few, where Bill's trying to explain to Anthony that what you're doing is morally wrong. You can't have justice without morality. And they name drop Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment. But at a point, they're in some Anthony says in some countries, if
you steal, we cut off your hand. Well, that's not true. In most cases, they just put you in jail. Well, what happens if you're a repeat offender? Well, they cut off 4 fingers. Okay, so then give me your social security number. I'm going to run a criminal background on you. If you're a repeat offender, I'm going to cut off 4 fingers. And I think that's when the tension, because I think that's when I realized, I mean, obviously, you know, the film's going to be more because it's 90 minutes, but there's that moment when it's clear that Anthony Hopkins' character is not going to let this man go. Like, his plan is to probably kill him, because he also says that with his Anthony Hopkins' character, that with his prostate cancer, he has like what, 3-4 months to live?
Yep, he's got nothing to lose.
So he has nothing to lose. Oh, another sad moment is when during that period before he got locked in the car, when he's trying to find money, Bill buys lottery tickets, and we see him scratch off some, and of course they're not winners. But while he's stuck in the car, he finds the lottery tickets and realizes he didn't finish scratching one of them. And of course, that one he didn't finish was a winner, $500.
We got a winner.
Well, which would have been enough for him to get his van back, and he never would have been in this predicament in the first place.
To reference another song and movie, you can't always get what you want, you get what you need.
Requiem for a Dream?
No, the Big Chill.
Oh, aren't they saying someone's a winner in Requiem for a Dream?
Yes, that was a different reference.
Another sad moment is when Bill Skarsgård is, I'm assuming, thinking that his life is over. He makes a goodbye video to his daughter and attempts to send it via, well, not a video, but like an audio clip. And he attempts to send it to her, but the SUV is blocking all cellular activity. So ultimately she does get it once he gets out of the van. But I thought that was pretty heartbreaking, because it seems like he has realized that what he's done is wrong.
The only moment where I felt actually, the most tension-filled moment was when they go after the daughter after school when she's walking home or riding her little
Well, yeah. Well, so one moment I didn't quite understand is Bill starts playing with the starter and the vehicle starts. Mm-hmm. Do you think Anthony started it for him, or that did it actually start?
I assumed that it actually started, but
I kind of did too.
William didn't realize that that was a possibility.
Right.
Because this is supposedly an experimental model of a car that he's had outfitted to hold someone captive.
That's right.
I did like how the interior of that car looked. Because you used to have a car, and I used to joke about the color was being cognac verisimilitude.
Which is not far from the actual name of the color.
No.
But Bill is able to start the car from the passenger seat, so he jumps in the driver's seat, and of course he's excited because he's able to put the car in drive and start driving, when all of a sudden the phone rings and we go into remote pilot mode, and then we see that Anthony is controlling it. And I have to say, it was a little unbelievable that Anthony Hopkins is able, he's driving this car like it's Grand Theft Auto.
Well, we don't really see the mechanism with how he's doing it.
We don't see how he's driving the car, but we do see that he's using his cell phone to
electrocute
him and turn up the audio and the heater and the air conditioning. So it's like, we also know that Anthony Hopkins has parked the car beneath his like high-rise penthouse. Mm-hmm. So he's watching the car as he's doing all these things to Bill Skarsgård. It's kind of hard to believe that he was holding one phone, doing things, while also watching a video monitor, while also driving the car. And he seems kind of like a rickety old man.
Maybe he's ambidextrous.
But getting to what you just said, he takes Bill on like a joyride that results in the vehicle killing 2 quote-unquote thugs. And then they're driving all night long. And the next day they end up at Bill's daughter's school. Mm-hmm. And Anthony's acting like he's going to run her over. And that was tense. Because this movie is...
Well, because I could only imagine for a child of that age, that would be terrifying.
And he does come close to running her over. And Bill's saying, please, please, I'll kill myself. And he holds his gun to his head and pulls the trigger. But then William says, oh, when I was bandaging you up, I took out the bullets. So he showed that like he was willing to sacrifice himself for his daughter. I thought that would give him some grace, but no. Apparently. Because Anthony says at one point, like, I think you're right. I think I am a psychopath. But he also says, well, first, when Anthony gets into the car and they go on that long drive at the end of the film, mm-hmm. Anthony tells Bill that he wants to introduce him to a little taste of hell. And that's when he tells the story of what happened to his daughter. So clearly he is beyond reason.
Yes, completely desensitized to humanity at this point, apparently.
But Anthony also tells Bill, people like you drive me insane. So he's like a broken man.
He's been pushed beyond a point of no return. Something else I didn't quite believe is that I needed it to be shown to me that the touch screen doesn't work. Because he's being tortured with loud yodeling.
You know what? I didn't even think about that because the touchscreen does work because he's able to answer the phone calls.
Yeah, so how come he can't stop the music?
So what? But Anthony still has spent a lot of time outfitting this car, and I've thought of everything. So
except not, but
I will say for what it is, although now that you've explained that it's a remake of a remake of a remake, they've had several chances to refine it.
Yes.
So I would hope that it would be at the level that it is here, because it does feel like it's like a finely tuned endeavor.
Yes, and the screening we're at, the director happened to be there, and I thought spoke very nicely about the endeavor of this film beforehand. But it was reminding me of a lot of films I really liked, car-related genre films like Spielberg's first film, Duel. It's kind of like a version of that, where is Fritz Weaver, who's being chased by an unknown assailant in the truck through the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then also Stephen King / John Carpenter's adaptation of Christine.
Well, actually, I feel like this feels like a combination of Duel and Saw. Because Anthony Hopkins is giving Jigsaw.
He's teaching lessons.
Lessons with no intention of really letting this person survive.
Well, yeah, you need to, if you want to teach, they have to live to show that they've learned their lesson. But it's nice to see Mr. Bill Skarsgård not be shellacked behind heavy makeup and playing some kind of, or redoing some classic villain that we've seen before. So,
Well, I did enjoy this film. What would you give Locked?
Again, I think that there really is mainly two performances through the whole film, and I think they're both very good. But I think that it starts very quickly, the mechanism of the plot, but it really stays at that same level, even to the very end, in my opinion. And considering that it's been made so many, even if I didn't know that this had several other remakes of this direct story, it is very familiar. So I'm going to give it, after this deliberation, 2.5.
I enjoyed it. I would give it 3 out of 5. Join us on Patreon and listen to our podcast. Bye.